KDE and Gnome aren't the only two out there that can give you a really, really nicely configured and sometimes playful desktop environment. Stick around, I'll be back to talk about one other that does a pretty darn good job. Welcome to the Drunk Linux User. I'm Len. I am the Drunk Linux User. And we've talked before about how KDE can be configured in such a way that it's just like you can just manipulate every single part of that distribution or that desktop environment and make it just sparkle the way you want to. And that's great. Some people have a problem with KDE though. Some find it maybe a little bit too difficult, and some people find that it crashes on them a bit. So KDE people are very loyal to that particular desktop environment, and rightfully so. It is good. It's, man, for the size of RAM that it takes up, very, very little, by the way, it does an amazing job. But there's another player on the block, and that's Gnome. And Gnome, you can get all these extensions. I've talked about that before. And it's like anything else. The more that you start adding to the operating system, the more that you're going to be using up just a little bit more RAM, a little bit more RAM. Maybe your resources are noticing just a slight drag here and there. And this is probably going to happen with Cinnamon as well, which is what I'm going to show you right now. In Linux Mint, you have the ability to go over here to your menu and go to System Settings. In System Settings, we've already talked once before about themes. You can set up your themes any way you want to. And that gives you a nice visual appearance just on its own. Yet there are a couple of other things here that you can play with. One is desklets. And off to the right over here on, well, my right, I guess it would be your right too, wouldn't it? Okay. Well, this little guy right here, this clock, is something that I really, really enjoy. You can put on the stock clock desklet, but it's a digital version. I like the analog. I'm old style, but it also reminds me of what you can do in KDE, and I particularly like this version of this clock. It's semi-transparent, it's unobtrusive, but it's there. It's easily readable, and there are a lot more that you can get too that you can put on your system. And all it takes is just going over to download, finding what you want, and installing it back over here. So you just click the positive after you download it. And so those are desklets. Another thing that we have are extensions. And extensions in Linux Mint can go a long way as well. Now, some of these remind me an awful lot of what you can get in Compiz. And for example, a Compiz is a compositor that was used for a long, long time in Ubuntu, and it offered things such as desktop cube. This is something that when you go to change a window or your desktops actually from your one workspace to another, it shows it like a box and it flips it around. I'm not going to put all this stuff on here. I'm just showing you what you can do. You have Flipper. It's another way of switching through windows. It's sort of like what Arrow used to do in Windows. Slider, another one. Wobbly Windows is where you can. I'll do this one just because it's fun. I'm not going to keep it. So I've just downloaded it. See, it's checkmarked. Stuff is really fast. So here's Wobbly Windows, blah, and I'm going to add it to the system. So it's on there. So now I've got Wobbly Windows. Wow, that doesn't look very good, does it? Well, maybe because I'm using OBS. So I'm just going to get out of that. I'm going to turn it off. Just get rid of it. There it goes. That's Wobbly Windows. Honestly, when you're not doing something like using this OBS, it works out pretty good. So I'm just going to go ahead and uninstall it. I never use it anyway. I just find it kind of fun. So you have extensions that you can use to play with. There is something good under General in the system settings, and that's a memory limit, where you can set Cinnamon. You can restart Cinnamon when it uses too much memory. I don't know how much memory you have on your system. I have a bit, so at 32 gigabytes of RAM, I don't think I really have to worry about this too much. I have not seen anything drag and cause any problems other than the wobbly windows we just saw, but that's a graphics issue. That's not a Cinnamon issue, I don't believe. So if you have maybe 8 gig RAM or 12 or something like that, you might want to consider having the system automatically reset Cinnamon if it starts getting to a threshold where it could seriously interrupt the performance of your system. Another thing that we have over here that's nice under privacy is this is an easy way to deactivate the internet connectivity. So when your system starts up, you have the ability to have your network manager go and ping a server somewhere. There are articles written up, not going to get into them right now, but there are articles written up stating that this kind of thing can actually become a security issue. So if you want to turn yours off, that's one right there. And I don't know, maybe it makes it a little bit easier, a little bit quicker to boot up too. I have no idea about that particular part of it, but for security and safety's sake, I just turn it off. You do have a screensaver, and you can customize this thing to have it do some really cool stuff as well. But I don't use screensavers. I just go to screen lock, and I do that manually, and that's just the way I do things. You can, just like all the other ones, you can set up your startup programs. What do you want to have launched when you boot up into Cinnamon? You have different things you can do with Windows. You can put the button layouts to the left, to the right. You can make them look like GNOME, Classic Mac, whatever. The different actions you can do with the title bar. And a lot of people in GNOME and a lot of people in KDE are saying, well, we can do this anyway. That's true. But my point is, you're not the only ones. You can do window tiling with this as well. You have different workspaces. Workspaces are like different screens you can go to. You can put maybe your email client and your chat client on one screen, and then if you have word processing and a spreadsheet going on another, and so on and so forth. And you can set up how many you want to set it up for that. So invert the left, display expo, so on and so forth. Okay, so the next thing we want to get to is the login window, because the login window is pretty cool. Now, I have to put in my password for this. And it popped up over there for a change. Okay. If you're just working with one monitor, when you log into your computer, your login screen is right there in front of you. But if you have dual monitors, this panel comes in very, very handy. And you can change the background of what you see when you log in. Also the background color. Now, if you have multiple monitors, you can stretch your background, as you can see here. You can draw a user background, so I can set mine. And going down, you can change the theme too. So whatever theme you're using, for example, I'm using Mint Y Dark Aqua. Mint Y Dark Aqua. And I'm using DMZ White for the cursor. Optional pictures you can choose for other monitors right here. This part is really cool. You can allow manual login, meaning you don't have to put in your password, or you can hide the user list, which is also really good because if somebody just walks into your place and turns your computer on, they're not going to see your username. They're going to have to know what your username is. So if it's something completely ridiculous like Dragon Farts or something like that, you type it in first, and then after you hit enter, you type in your password. So this is a nice way of being able to make your system just a little bit more secure. It's sort of like going to a Windows machine at work. If you're in a large office setting, or maybe if you've ever worked at a call center, for example, each station is set up so that everybody has to put in their username and their password. This is the same kind of thing. The other thing that I really like is that you can turn off guest sessions if you don't want to. So If you don't want anybody else using your computer, that's a great way of setting it up. Here's the automatic login. And I like this part. Activate numlock as soon as it comes on, but at the computer. But the thing is that you have to install numlocks, which is, let's go over to our software manager. See where he's going to pop up. And of course, oh, right in front of us. Good. So right here, there you go. I've got this installed on my system already, and that allows me to activate or deactivate the numlock keys when I turn on. If you have a high DPI monitor, you can adjust it this way. I leave mine at auto. The monitor, though, this is great. Choose which monitor should display the login window. So, for example, I have the TV off to on this side of me over here, and I use that to play movies on, of course. So, but I use the streaming from my computer to get over there, but that is not my main monitor. I mean, I'd be having to set back about 10 feet to be able to use it effectively. I want to use my 32-inch monitor that I have right in front of me. I want to log in over here. I don't want to log in over there. So I just set the monitor to what this is considered HDMI 2. It's the way my graphics card is set up. If yours has something completely different, you're just going to have to play with it and figure out which one you want to set it to. And all the other panel indicators in here as well. So the login window is, to me, I think this is like one of the coolest things that has been developed for distribution, and it's one of the first things I go to when I set up a Linux Mint system. All the rest of them are pretty well self-explanatory. For example, the mouse, you can make the mouse size smaller, you can make it bigger, but the theme again for the mouse is set up under the themes panel. So there's a lot more that you can get involved with here as far as setting up the way you want to have Cinnamon. For example, if you want to move the bottom panel over here that has all your programs and stuff, you can select just by clicking on each one of these sides over here where you want it. So if you want it up at the top, that's all it is. Move, again, you just bring it down to the bottom. I just prefer that. This is the way I like to do things. So there we have it. We have this is a real brief tutorial on how to change and tweak things in Linux Mint Cinnamon for you if you're so inclined. And it also takes care of some things that you normally have to go into a terminal and hit command line in, especially, for example, setting up which monitor is going to be your login screen. I really like the fact that that's available to me here. So let's go and talk about our words of wisdom, shall we? Don't drive drunk. Don't drink and drive. Don't go to eBay, Amazon, or use Microsoft Edge all buzzed up thinking you're going to buy the latest, greatest, and coolest. You're probably not. In the meantime, bottoms up. Later, dudes.